demonstration, I'm going to implement Azure DNS. There are 6 tasks that I will perform in this demonstration. The first thing that I will do is to create the resource group that I'm going to deploy all the resources into. So I will name that resource group RG1. After that, I'm going to create a virtual network, and I will name the virtual network VNet1. Then I'm going to create a private DNS zone. Then I will link that private DNS zone to a virtual network. Then I'm going to now create a virtual machine that will be connected to that virtual network so that I can test my configuration. Then I'll now go back and verify that I have DNS records that I can use to ping those virtual machines. So this is my portal once again, and what I'm going to do now is to click here, that is the search, and I'm looking for resource group. Then I'm going to click create so that I can create a new resource group. Remember, like I said, the title of this resource group or the resource group name is going to be RG1. And I will leave it this way. I mean, for the region, it's going to be East US. Then I will click review plus create. So it's going to go through validation as usual. And now I'll click create so that it can go ahead now and create the resource group. Now that the resource group has been created, the next thing that I will do now is to create the virtual network. So I'll click here and I'm going to look for virtual network. Now I'm going to create a virtual network and I will call it VNet1. So I'll click here. The virtual network, like I said, is going to be what? VNet1. And this virtual network, I will go to the IP address tab and I will give the IP address a range of IP address 10.20.0.0. And as for the subnet, I'm going to leave it like this, default subnet. Now, the main essence of this demonstration is not just about the virtual network. What I want to achieve is to show you the essence of Azure DNS, or how Azure DNS works, or how you can make use of Azure DNS. So I'm going to click review plus create, and after the validation, as you can see now, it is only the final validation. So after this, as you can see, validation passed. So I will now click the create button. And once again, it's initializing the deployment. And after this, it will start supplying the resources into the Azure environment. Now, you can see it's now submitting the deployment. So I'm going to wait for a few minutes. So at this point, I'm going to pause this video and I'll be back. The deployment is complete. The next thing that I will do now is to go to the private DNS zone. Then I'm going to create an instance of private DNS zone. Now, what is the purpose of private DNS zone? Azure Private DNS provides a reliable, secure DNS services to manage and resolve domain names in a virtual network without the need to add a custom DNS solution. So what I will do right now is that I'm going to click the create button so that I can create an instance of a private DNS zone. Once again, the private DNS zone provides name resolution services within virtual network. So a private DNS zone is accessible only from the virtual network that it is linked to and can be accessed over the internet. For example, you can create a private DNS zone named contoso.com and then create the DNS zones like www contoso.com in the zone. So what I want to achieve here is very simple. I'm going to create this private DNS zone, and later I will link it to the VNet one that I created in the last task. Then I will now deploy virtual machine into that VNet. It simply means that those virtual machines will now have a DNS record that I can also use to ping those virtual machines, apart from the fact that I can also use the IP address to also ping the virtual machine. So for the private DNS zone, I will just name it contoso.com, and I will click review plus create. Once again, it's running the final validation, and after this, it will allow me to click the create button. Now I'll click the create button. Once again, it's initializing the deployment, and after this, it's going to submit the deployment. While that is going on, let's go to the whiteboard. Then I'm going to draw the two resources that I have created. The first one is the virtual network, and that is the VNet one. And VNet one contains just one subnet, and that subnet is default subnet. Then I'm also going to draw the resources that I just created now, and that is the private DNS zone, and the name of the private DNS zone is contoso.com. And remember, this contoso.com is what? A private DNS zone. So I'm just going to have a label so that we can remember that it's a private DNS zone. Now go back to my Azure portal. Now that the private DNS zone is ready, that is, the deployment is complete, so I'll go to the resource, and that is the private DNS zone that I named contoso.com. Under the DNS management, I'll click virtual network link. So this is where I will now link this Contoso DNS to a particular virtual network. So I'm going to click add, and the name of the link will be VNet1 link. And as for the subscription, is going to remain this way. And as for the virtual network, I'll click the drop down and I'll select VNet1. Then I'm going to check this box, enable auto registration. Then I'll click create. So it's now creating the virtual network link between the contoso.com, that is my private DNS, and the VNet1, that is my virtual network. Now here, from the notification, it's saying that the virtual network link is actually completed. It has finished creating it, but right now here it's still showing me that it's in progress. So what I need to do is just to refresh this area. So it's trying to fetch the new record now. As you can see, it's now completed. So now back to the diagram. So I've connected the private DNS zone now, I've linked it to the VNet one. So let's draw the diagram to show that we're probably linked contoso.com private DNS zone to the VNet one. The next thing that I will do now is that I'm going to deploy two different virtual machines to that virtual network. So I'll go to the virtual machine. I'm going to deploy two. So I'll click on the create and then select virtual machine. And in the virtual machine form, I'm going to select first the resource group. After that, I will name the virtual machine VM1. That's the first virtual machine, and it's going to be in the East US, that's the region. And as for the availability option, I'm going to select no redundancy required. And as for the image of the virtual machine, is going to be Windows Server 2019 data center. And the size is going to remain this way. That's standard D2S underscore V3. The next thing is to supply the username. I'm going to call it Azure user. And as for the password, I'm not going to tell you what the password is, but the only thing you need to know is that it must be 8 characters in terms of the length of the password, and it must be a secure password. And there are rules that you need to remember when we talk about secure password. The first one is that it must be between 8 to 12. What that simply means is that in some instances, 12 in terms of the length of the password is acceptable, and in some instances, 8 in terms of the length of the password is also acceptable. But in this case, based on the recent updates, you need to provide 12 characters for the password. Not just set of characters, you also have to combine other things like in the password, there must be at least one uppercase, there must be at least one lowercase letter, there must be at least one special character, and there must be at least one number. So the fifth one is the length of the password. So, and because I want to be able to access the virtual machine from outside, I want to be able to log into the virtual machine. So I'm going to come to the inbound port and I will check RDP. So although it's already checked by default, but you have to come here and confirm. Then I'll move to the networking so that I can connect this virtual machine to a particular virtual network. That is the VNet one. Inside the VNet one, I'm going to select and make sure that it is connected to what? To the default subnet. And I think that's okay. So I'll click review plus create. As usual, it's going to confirm if everything is in order, after which it will allow me to click the create button. I'll click create. So the process of creating the virtual machine has begun. Is now submitting the deployment. So as you can see, the deployment is in progress. While that is going on, I'll go back to the virtual machine again. So I'm going to click create. I'm going to click on the virtual machine so that I can create another virtual machine instance. This time around, it's going to be VM2 virtual machine. So the first thing that I will do is to select the resource group. I'm still going to make sure that I select the RG one. And as for the virtual machine name, it's going to be VM2. And as for the region, it's going to be East US. Then under the availability option drop down, I'm going to select no redundancy required. Then, and as for the image, it's going to be Windows Server 2019 Data Center Gen 2. And as for the size, it's going to be standard D2S underscore V3. The username is going to be Azure user, and I'm going to supply the password. Then, as for the inbound ports, RDP, and I'll go to the networking tab, and I want to make sure that this virtual machine is connected to the VNet 1 virtual network, and the subnet is the default subnet. So having done this, I'll click review plus create. Then I'll click the create button. So at this junction, I'm going to pause this video and I'll be back in a few minutes time. I just want to make sure that the two virtual machines are ready. So now that the virtual machines are ready, let me go to the virtual machines to confirm again. This shows that the two virtual machines are ready. Now back to the diagram again. I've created two virtual machines, the VM1 and the VM2. And the two virtual machines are connected to what? The VNet 1. So connected, both are connected to the VNet 1. So this is VM1 and this is the VM2 virtual machine. Now let's go back to the private DNS zone now. The private DNS zone, I should be able to see that it has created a DNS record for the two virtual machine. So I'll go to the consoles.com, that's the private DNS zone that I created, and I'll come to the record set. Now it's trying to fetch the record. Look at the VM1, 10.20.0.4, that's the IP address. Look at the VM2, 10.20.0.5. Please take note of this IP address because I'm going to use the two IP address to ping each other later. But the most important thing now is that there is a DNS record. It simply means that instead of using 10.20.0.4, I can as well say vm1.contoso.com. Instead of 10.20.0.5, I can as well say vm2.contoso.com. That is exactly what I want to achieve. And that is the reason why I created the private DNS zone. Let's go and confirm. So I'll go to the virtual machine and I want to connect to the two of them via RDP. So I'll click on the first one and I'll go to connect so that I can connect the virtual machines. Then I'll click download RDP. Now I'll connect the VM1. I'll supply the password. Sorry, I think I didn't get the password right. Now it's trying to establish the connection to the VM1 virtual machine, as you can see. Now I'm going to connect the second one, that's the VM2. I'll click on the download RDP file and I'll say connect. That's also established the connection to the second virtual machine. So this is one of the virtual machine. I'll click on the start button, then I will select PowerShell. I'll type ipconfig /all. Now press enter. You can see the host name, VM1. Remember the IP address, 10.20.0.4. So that is the IP address of the VM1. Let's go and confirm the host name and the IP address of the second virtual machine. That's this one. So the same thing. I'll go to the start button and I'll select the PowerShell. I'll type the same thing, ipconfig /all. Now press enter. So the host name once again is VM2 and the IP address is 10.20.0.5. So what I want to do now is to use this script ns lookup. I want to ping the other virtual machine, that is 10.20.0.4. Something is wrong with the lookup. Typographical error. Yes. Look at it. Look at it. It returned the IP address, right? Now let's do it. So let's do something else. Let's do it this way. Let's say ns lookup this is VM2 VM1 dot contoso.com. Look at it. Look at the name, vm1.console.com. So it actually returned the information about that VM1 IP address, despite the fact that I use the vm1.console.com. So the vm1.console.com is the DNS name of that VM1 virtual machine. If I go to the other virtual machine, I can also do the same thing. So coming back to the second virtual machine, I want to do the same thing. This time around, I will just say ns lookup vm2.contoso.com. Look at it. That's the IP address of the VM2, 10.20.0.5. Thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, consider subscribing to this channel. Please, let me know what you think in the comment section. And do not forget to leave a like and share this video. See you in the next one.